We have already created all of the pages that are going to be part of our new application. And when we were taking a look at the Xamarin Forms previewer, we changed the background color of the button, and we also had to change the text color so the design also looks good on iOS. When you are designing your application or where you are developing it, most of the times you will want all of the buttons or some of the buttons to look the same way. Maybe they all have to have the same background color, the same text color, and the same applies to many other elements. It is just better UI and UX design to have consistency throughout the entire application. And so when we start creating more and more buttons, it's going to be harder to maintain the application. Just picture the next scenario. You have about 10 or 12 buttons inside of a very large application. And all of these buttons are supposed to look the same. If we were to define them the same way that we have defined the first button so far, you would have to define the background color in each and every one of these buttons. And the same goes for the text color. But what happens if eventually you change your mind and you don't like .JetBlue anymore and you want to use another color? Then you would have to go to those 11 or 12 buttons and change the background color because each and every one of them is defining it. In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the most amazing features of XAML that will allow us to solve this problem, to be able to reuse a definition of a color. More specifically, to be able to reuse pretty much any resource that we want. So let's go ahead and take a look at resources. Each XAML file has its own resources. Right now, our content page has none, so let's go ahead and define one. Inside of the content page, I can open a definition for content page.resources, and inside of the opening and closing tag of the resources is where I can define any number of elements. For example, I can define a color, and this color is going to define its value inside of the opening and closing tags like this. Now in this case, I need to assign the color through a hexadecimal code. If you're not familiar with this, on your screen, usually a color is made out of 3 colors, or the combination of 3 colors: red, green, and blue, at least in the RGB system. In this case, each and every one of these colors can have a value from 0 to 255. And it's this combination of values between the 3 channels that create a color. And in a hexadecimal value, these numbers from 0 to 255 are created with hexadecimal values. If you're not familiar with hexadecimal values, these go from 0 to 9 and from A to F. So the F would be kind of like a 15, the A would be kind of like a 10, and in the hexadecimal system, the 0 to 255 that we have on the decimal system goes from 00 to FF. And in the hexadecimal color value, you will have to have 6 digits. The first 2 are for the red, the second 2 are for the green, and the last 2 are for the blue. And so I would have to write a value like 1E, which is for the red, 90, which is for the green, and FF, which is for the blue. And now I have this color. To be able to use this color, we're going to need to assign a key to it. And to assign a key to it, all you have to do is write x:\key and write a name for this color resource. In this case, it could be blue color. Now I am forgetting to add something in here. The color is supposed to be inside of a resource dictionary. So we're going to define a resource dictionary inside of the content page of resources, and inside of the resource dictionary, we are going to define the color, like this. Now that we have defined the color, the way to use it is to go back to the button and change the definition of the background color to be different. And in here, we're going to be using these brackets. And inside of these brackets, we're going to write static resource, and we're going to write the key, in this case, blue color. Now, this resource could be used throughout the entire page. And let's say that you're using it momentarily also for the text color inside of this entry. We will write text color equals, then again, static resource, and the name of the resource, which is blue color. And then let's add some text inside of here. And notice that indeed the text is going to be in that color. Let's add it for the password as well. And notice that it also looks blue. Now what happens if we change the value of this resource? You would only have to change it once. So if you wanted to change the blue color, maybe even to something that isn't even blue, if you hadn't created a resource and reused it throughout all of these elements, you would have to go to each element and change the value. But since we already have one resource and are reusing it throughout the 3 elements, we can get back to the definition of the resource and change its value to something like this. And now the blue color is not blue at all, but it has changed in all of the elements. We only had to change it once in the resource in order for it to be applied to all of the elements inside of the screen that are using that resource. And this of course works the same way on iOS. Now, right now, this resource only exists inside of the main page content page. And usually the colors, you're going to be reusing them throughout the entire application, not just one page. So the best way to define these resources is to define them from the app.saml file. Notice that in fact, we already have this definition of application.resources. So let's head back to the main page.saml, cut the resource dictionary that we have inside of the content page, the resources, and in fact, we're not going to be needing the resources anymore because this resource is going to be inside of the app.saml. And we paste these resources, and these resources are now going to be widely available throughout the entire application. And notice that even when the resources are on another file, in this case the app file, we still have them. We are still able to use them. And let's just test that in fact this is not just something that the previewer is not able to re-render. Let's go ahead and change the value of our blue color for it to be blue again and see that it is being rendered correctly. So it was 1E90FF. And I save the changes. I'm going to return to the main page and notice that it is re-rendered with a blue color again. And that blue color exists on the app.saml file, no longer in the main page, and I am still able to use it. In the next lecture, we're going to continue to use the resources of a SAML file to be able to apply styles to our UI elements.